On this episode of Survivor Angels, Astrology Meets Divine. Along with renowned astrologer Rob Dorgan, together we explore cosmic cycles, celestial guidance, and the unseen forces shaping our destiny. So whether you're a seasoned stargazer or just awakening to the universe's magic, this is where the heavens speak, and we start to decode the message.
It's time for Survivor Angels, an approach to strengthen trauma survivors. Here, you can escape what draws negativity and engage your positive abilities and the gifts that you've always had. Let's activate your angels. And to help you on that journey, here's Chaplain Jodi.
Rob, welcome to Survivor Angels.
Thanks, Jodi. Thanks for having me on. I've been really excited about this.
I am so excited too. This is a topic I have wanted to talk about for a good while now. And when a good friend of ours, Kayla, sort of got us together on this, I was ecstatic. Rob is now going to be my astrological guru. Everyone who's watching and listening. We were just talking a little bit, Rob, before we actually got this going about everything that's going on in the world and our universe and that connection. And I don't think a lot of people make that connection. So how do you see our current position, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, many astrologers have been saying that 2025 was going to be a very pivotal year. And I'm going to try to keep how I explain this basic, because the beauty of our lifetime is that astrology has blown up. There's all kinds of astrology, like evolutionary, psychological, just the very mundane. So you can find what you're attracted to. But I'd like to just keep this kind of basic for those of us who are feeling a little off center and just feeling like we're having a hard time grounding. There's a lot of energies coming to us. Okay, so with astrology, we're looking at being on the earth and how the energies of the universe are affecting us on the planet. We're not saying that the earth is the center of the universe, which is where a lot of people get thrown off. But because we're on earth, we look at how the energies are affecting us. So last year, at the very end of the year, Pluto, which is the planet of ultimate transformation, the deep down, really deep issues that we face in life, the furthest out from us, went into the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius is the energy that transformation is probably, again, I'm generalizing to make this kind of accessible, to those folks that are listening. But it is about the collective energy, and it is about taking us to a level of understanding equality and equanimity. Okay, now it's just getting started. And the last time that it was in, because of how long it takes Pluto to move, it's been 250 years since it has been in Aquarius.
Wow.
Now, I'm also a historian, so I like to go back and look at how things were historically. 250 years ago, we could kind of generalize that we were going through the American Revolution, but specifically, the United States is having had a Pluto return recently because we're 250 years old, and it all revolved around the Constitution and bringing the Constitution into reality. So therefore, all those issues that we're hearing are very much guided by Pluto, because it's back to where it was when all of this was happening. So I love that kind of synchronicity, and it helps us to feel a little bit more like we're on the pulse. Okay. So then if I just go in from the planet. So if I go from Pluto into Neptune, Neptune has been in Pisces for the last 15 years. So we get used to it. This year in 2025, it is going to dip its toe into Aries and then go back into Pisces.
Okay.
Now, Neptune is, again, I'm generalizing, but spirituality, also creativity. It's the unseen. You know, Neptune rules the water and the ocean. So if we meld together mythology, then we can see that what Neptune rules is very hard to see with the naked eye or outwardly. We have to kind of go inside for Neptune. Neptune is dipping its toe into Aries and back. Whenever any of these outer planets change signs, it can be challenging for us humans, because it's like a new energy to get used to. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Then the last of the outer planets, the transpersonal planets, Uranus, is going from Taurus, which it's been for 7 years, into Gemini and back again. Okay. Uranus is chaos, revolution, but also needed change, taking us up a level in higher consciousness, because it's the planet of higher consciousness. So and there's a lot. There's more than that, but just to kind of review real quickly is that you can see that we have 3 of the transpersonal planets, the planets that really speak to us about raising the consciousness of the planet, shifting and moving energies this year. Pluto finally, it was doing a lot of that last year in 2023 and 2024. It's now in Aquarius. It's there. The other 2 are dipping in, dipping back. So we're all kind of going, okay, what's happening? What's happening? This, just to give you an overview of that without going on. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, it does. And I mean, like you said, it's a lot, which is exactly why I wanted to talk with someone like you who could break it down and yet still understands the more complex pieces of it. Yes. I just think back to, I think I was about 11 years old, and the first time I found my horoscope, my zodiac, I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Have fun, huh?
I was so excited. And so let's maybe take a step back into our horoscopes and our zodiac, this piece of astrology, because I think that's what's most familiar to people, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I come across people who are like, oh, I don't believe in astrology, I'll say, okay, then just humor me. What's your sun sign? They all know.
Right. And
then once I start talking about that, they leave the skeptic alone and they want to have a conversation, because it's in some ways it really connects us. We can talk about our sun sign, or we know somebody who's a different sign and all that. So yes, that personal zodiac. But I will say the last 15 years, like I was saying with Neptune being in Pisces, now it's dipping its toe in Aries. But that last 15 years is what has seen yoga and astrology go off the board. So if we're talking specifically about millennials, Gen X, Gen Z, so many of them have astrological apps on their phone. When these younger folks are coming to me now for readings, in-depth readings, what is so phenomenal is how much they already know. Like used to, it would be like, so do you know your sun sign? Well, I think I'm a Capricorn, or I think I'm a Taurus or whatever. And it's like, now they're like, well, I'm Capricorn, Leo rising, Sagittarius moon. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, because that gives you so much information. And astrology is a self-help tool. This is the way I see it.
Okay.
I do not use it to predict. I mean, I can see trends in your life that, sure, because I'm more of a psychological astrologer. Like, my thing is, how do we all raise our consciousness? Because as we individually raise our consciousness, we're raising the consciousness of the planet.
Thank you.
Yes, and we need that, right?
Yes.
And we can do that by just studying our chart. Because the more we understand ourselves, the more self-love we can give ourselves, the more reasons we know why we have certain patterns, and we can lift our energy up by facing it then on a different level. So that's how I see the personal zodiac can really help people out. Even if they just know their sun, which is their inner nature or spirit, if they know their rising sign, and that's based on the time that they were born, and the more exact, the better. So off your birth certificate or out of a baby book, that sets up the way you can kind of see how you face the outside world. Very general terms, but that's kind of how a lot of astrologers will say that's your mask that you'll allow the world to see first.
Okay.
And then the moon is your emotional nature, like how you're dealing with the world. Now, are those three compatible? Just by knowing whether or not your three main influences in your life are somewhat compatible, or are there conflicts and opportunities, it can really help you to understand yourself. So I hope that answered that question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it did. Rob, I just think growing up, like I said, when I discovered I had a zodiac and I could figure out some of these things. Religion, and of course, I'm an ordained pastor, so I'm not poo-pooing organized religion here. I'm ordained in the Lutheran faith. But the organized religions, such as Lutheran and Catholic, and I mean, just go down the line, they sort of believed astrology to be like the occult. Yes. And they're like, you're dabbling in black magic if you go there. I never, ever felt that way about it. Like you said, it's a tool, and that's sort of the way I saw it.
That's beautiful. And honestly, Jodi, you were going with your intuition. I mean, I have a similar background. I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
But I also have a master's degree in history, European history. I have everything but my dissertation for a PhD. And here's one of the things, in this, which I know we'll talk about, my book that just came out, Awakening the Mystic. One of the things that I say in that through the character is, as a historian, he's a historian in there, astrology just kept coming up. Now, I even went to Catholic college. So even in that playpen of knowledge, it was all, it was there. So even after it got poo-pooed, as we're talking about, it stayed around. Now it went underground, like a lot of esoteric knowledge does, and then it comes back up. So the reason, just let me give you this, and I'm not downplaying any religion. I think however your spirit elevates itself. But what I do suggest is really looking at what you believe, okay? So when we look historically at why those things were downplayed, it's basically because they tell you you have your own personal divine connection to source. Tools like the tarot and astrology and many other things were downplayed because then there's no need for an intermediary, like a priest.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So but now what's happened is that knowledge has been so spoon-fed to us over and over and over again that we just take it as reality.
Yep.
What possibly could be wrong with knowing more about yourself? Okay, so I had to break down those barriers for myself a long time ago. Yes. And how it happened was discernment. In yoga, we call it viveka. It was, I realized how much I was learning from astrology. I put aside the superstition of it, and I had a very liberal Catholic mother, so that was a really good thing for me. And she encouraged me, well, check it out. See, check it out for yourself, that kind of thing. And that's what I encourage people. Check it out for yourself. If it doesn't work for you, there are other tools.
Right.
But right now, collectively, a lot of people are getting information out of it, especially if they find the right astrologers, the right teachers in any of this.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to address that a little bit.
Right. Yeah. No, great. I love this. And, it's so interesting to me because it's like 81 or 82% of the world's population, not just the US, but the world's population believes in angels. They might not be in a practicing faith at all, but they do believe in angels. I believe, and I can find it in scripture, I can find it in other places, but I think this is where angels have a direct connection to astrology, that there's a connection with angels and the stars, and then therefore the planets. How does that sit with you? How does that feel? What does it make you think of?
Well, I'm going to be very honest. I know there's a lot of information out there. There's so much information that you have to discern what you're going to study. Mm-hmm. That is not something that I have studied in depth, but I know that certain, especially archangels, are associated with certain planets.
Yes.
Okay. I think everything is energy, and then we give it a name.
Right.
Okay. So
totally.
for instance, I hope you'll bear with me, but in the book, what was so interesting is when you and I talked about coming onto the show and that I started listening to your podcast about the angels, because at first I was like, well, what's the connection here? Well, I realized that two angels go throughout the whole book. There's just, it's very subtle. And it's very astrological, what's happening to the characters. And then there's a lot of yoga. So going back to your question, how does it sit with me? I'm always looking for synchronicity. So me sitting here with you talking about angels, first of all, when we agreed that when we talked to each other about doing this, I just said to myself, because at first I'm a super Capricorn, self-doubt, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not sure that I'm the right guest on an angel show. And then I was like, but I feel them. And then I realized they're in the book. Raphael is in the very first pages of the book, unnamed, but a brown angel with 4-foot wings carries the main character forward. He comes back in at the end as the healing energy. Well, the little bit I do know about angels is that Raphael, in what I've studied, is associated with Mercury, which is the sign of Virgo. Virgo is the healer, the service, health, all that. So we see that these things aren't random. And the same thing, the other angel that's in here, and I don't really connect them astrologically, but is Gabriel. And there's some poignant scenes in here with Gabriel that the archangel actually is an opening to someone's consciousness just blowing wide open. Okay? Because of a line in there that says, may you be carried on the wings of the angels. Uh-huh. And that comes from Gabriel, who I believe is associated with Cancer, which is a different form of healing, a much more deep, nurturing, feminine healing, at least from the little bit that I've studied.
Right.
So when we talk about it, I think if our analytical mind is all we tap into, like if we're very scientific and analytical, we miss the point.
Yes.
Because talking about angels and myths and archetypes are ways for us to really dive deeper into who we are. And if I give it a name, or if I have an intent and call on it in that respect, then there it is. Because we can personify those energies. So that's kind of like my take on it.
Yes. And I'm so on board with you. And the way that you describe Gabriel, that you have him in the book, for me, Gabriel is the archangel of communication. And he's for writers and artists. And to me, that just says everything is open, because you and I both know, as do many of our listeners, that those people, to be as creative as they are, need to just open themselves to the world, to the universe.
Yes, for sure. Yes. And it's through the communication of Gabriel basically talking through the main character to a person in this intense situation whose name is Gabe, but the main character doesn't know it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a cool connection. You'll love it. You'll love it. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get this now and read this. I've been going to order it. And I haven't had time because, like I said, I redid my studio and everything. So I've been a little busy.
Oh, well, you know what? I always say it comes to you when you need it. So
Absolutely. Yes.
people listening, maybe this is the time that they may need it. And just one little other plug for those of you who are daunted by, looking at this and going, oh, I read the audiobook. And it's gotten a lot of great reviews because, as you can tell, I have like passion and drama in the way I present myself. So the audiobook comes across like that too. So if you're not a reader, just get the audio, sit back, and just let it flow.
Well, since we're talking about your book, in which you have, brought in a few pieces of it,
Yes.
Tell us more about it.
Well, it does encompass some astrology because the main character is studying astrology, dabbles in it. Unlike myself, he's just dabbling and he goes to experts for some advice or whatever. But he has a mystical experience basically in front of the world. So this introverted yoga meditation teacher is basically thrown out into the world, not that he wants to be. And so, because I don't want to give too much away, but then it basically moves through his life and how this process basically opens his consciousness to that we're something bigger than what we think we are through the ego. And that's where the yoga part comes in. You don't need to know anything about astrology and yoga. There's a glossary in the back if you're one of those people that like to know more. But the story carries itself. It weaves in some of those concepts that might make you interested, but you don't need to know it. You can just take the characters beginning through the end and see that it is basically a transformation of this person's inner being. Okay, and he's guided by a council of gods and goddesses who represent his astrological chart. So that's kind of the fun part,
right?
Yeah.
The fact that your character has this mystical awakening, if you will, in front of the whole world, I think when people read your book is going to speak to many of them because, as you said, as we started the show, 2025 is a big year now. Many have already felt the shift starting. It's already in process, as you will. I was told by a Greek psychic medium that 5 years, so 2029, which when you add 2029 is the number 13, which I believe that there's a correlation with numbers as well, that is going to be the point where the world needs to understand. I'll just simply call it the big picture.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Well, we just had a synchronistic moment. The book all revolves around a sutra 113. The number 13 is huge in this book. And it is a huge number of transformation.
Yes.
If we go to the numerology and astrology with it, the number 4, 1, 3 together vibrate to this number 4, which is eclectic. It has a lot of energy to it about change and transformation. Now, I'm not a tarot expert, but 13 is the death or transformation card in the tarot. So yes, I believe that is where we're headed. And if I can just go out there a little bit more, I think that it's fine, is we've all decided to be here right now for a reason. We're in this time period to participate in this change, to hopefully take things up a level, okay? And so when I was teasing about the back of my t-shirt, the front's got my book, Awakening the Mystic, and the back says, I'm a mystical revolutionary. And that's in the book. The character starts to see that consciousness is at a percolating point to where it can come up and that we can all become mystical revolutionaries. So with that, to ground that information, what it's talking about is center on how you can get more grounded in your heart, less away from your mind ego. We need it. But how can you combine the heart and mind voice so you can really hear what needs to be done, when you need to pull back and do self-care? That's a mystical revolutionary right there. Knowing when to take care of yourself and how to do it. Learning to breathe. The main character is an avid meditator. The meditation techniques that he does through the sutras are what bring on this experience. But he's in every person. Every person may not have this. I mean, it's fiction, and it's telling a story that needs to pull you in. But we all have a mystical story when we allow it to bloom in our heart.
Yes.
The synchronicity is constantly happening. It's like what Carl Jung said. If we really saw all the synchronicity happening, we might go crazy. So the mind starts to filter it out, Yeah. But we, just it's like centering on ourselves, because it is hard to believe, but the more that we raise our own consciousness, if our mystical revolution is in our own heart, we are still influencing the collective, because we are all attached. And as it says in the book, we're all attached by a beautiful silver thread of light.
I love this. Absolutely love this. I think this is a great place to stop for this time.
Right.
I know, because like you said, we were sort of at a high level here. You're going to come back on the show, and I've got a few other things that I might pull you in for too that I can't talk about right now.
Okay.
But because we're gonna go deeper here, because that's just one layer of many, many layers. And it's so fascinating. And I know so many of our listeners are just hungry for this kind of, I'm not going to say information, I'm going to say wisdom, because that's truly what it is wisdom. So everybody, I will have all the information about Rob's book in the description of the podcast, so you can get it for yourselves. He's got it on audio.
Yeah, it's on all of them. Audible and Barnes and Noble, and yeah.
Yep. And you can check that out, and then, stay with Survivor Angels, because Rob is going to be coming back on here at some point, and we will talk more about this subject that really is about life. Yeah. Right?
And
Rob,
love.
Love. Yes.
Yeah. And love.
Yep. Life, light, and love. I love that. That's a great way to end. Rob, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Until next time, take care. Keep watching the stars.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jodi on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjodi.me. That's chaplainjodi.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jodi. Sound effects for the show created by Andre Opate and provided by Pixbay. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.